Okay. So in your books, page number 237. And there are loads of commands in this chapter, just so that you know, lots of commands. I will bring up the, hold on a second, okay. Everybody should be able to see my screen now.
Yes.
Chapter number 14. Okay, this chapter has tons of commands, loads of commands. Retrieving and changing external attributes. Some of the stuff that you'll be seeing in this chapter, we have seen it before in the past. So for example, we have dealt with retrieving and changing external attributes. And we have done some of these commands like retrieving system value command, where we grab the system date, or we did retrieve attributes, job attributes, through which we'd retrieve some job information like the name of the user and things like that. So there are some of the commands that we have done before, but then there are lots of other commands that you will be seeing for the first time. So return variables. That's a very important concept in this chapter. So in chapter 13, you learn that if a calling program makes a call to a called program, so there are two programs, one is a calling, the other one is a called. So when a called program receives a call and receives parameters, and if it changes the values of the parameter, they also affect the calling program. And we learned that it is called pass by reference. And that's exactly what the chapter starts out with, chapter 14. In some cases, a variable's value in the calling program may not be important because in the calling program, the value that you initialize the variable with, that value is not important. You're waiting for called program to change it to some meaningful value so that when you are back in the calling program, the value is meaningful. So in that regard, until a called program places a value into the variable, it's not really a good value. A program might need to call another program or execute command to retrieve an external value, such as a date, and then continue processing. So that example described the concept of a return variable, a value that comes back from someplace else. That is a variable that has a significant value only upon the return from another program or command. Okay. So at the bottom of page 237, you see this long list. Take a moment to look at these commands and what they stand for. You guys can also log into V2 Cloud. I want to show you a few things before we make any progress. So that's why let's log into V2 Cloud. Let me know when you guys are all logged into the green screen. So when I'm in the green screen, and in the meanwhile, those of you who are still in the process of logging in, if I want to know all possible retrieve commands available to me on this system, what should I type on the green screen? What command should I type to see all the retrieve commands?
That'd be the DSP CMD. And then
No, one command, only one command.
one command.
Yes.
Oh boy, I gotta look at my notes.
All commands are by subject or verbs. So if you know the verb, you can pull all the commands that has that verb in them.
So RTV, CMD.
First, tell me what command do we use to list all the commands of a certain verb or subject? What command do we use to list all the commands of a certain verb or a subject? It is the go command. Go. Because you will now like to open the menu to see all the commands that fall in that verb or subject, followed by CMD, followed by the verb or the subject. So this is the command I type, go space CMD RTV. And when I press enter, I can see all the retrieve commands.
Oh.
Okay. And there are 45 of them. You can page down through the list and you can see the 45 commands.
I got kicked out. Give me a second to log back in.
Oh, sure, that's fine. And here you can identify those commands as well that are in the book on page 237. So I want you to do that, in fact, find those commands as well that you see in the book. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There are 10 of them listed on page 237. Okay. Now let's look at page 238, which is the first command, retrieve job attributes. Retrieve job attribute command is what we have used in the past to retrieve the name of the user. And you can see other items or other attributes of this command on page number 238. Retrieve job attribute. If I want to get a username, you can see an example right here. Okay, I can type current user, and I can return the name of the current user in the current user variable, which I would have to declare, of course, ahead of time. Okay. If I want to grab the date of the job attribute, I can then push the date attribute into a date variable. Very similarly, if I want to know the nature of the job, if it's a batch job or if it's a interactive job, I can then call the job attribute. And in the parentheses, I can use a variable in which I can read what kind of attribute is that, okay? Sorry, type attribute, not job, type attribute. What are the two possible values of the type attribute as listed on this slide?
Batch and interactive?
The values are 0 or 1.
Okay, yeah.
Okay. So if the value is 0, it's a batch job. If its a value is 1, it's an interactive job. Keeping that in mind, I want you to look at the example on page 239. Right at the top, we have a program that receives two parameters, the mode and the customer number. Then it retrieves the job attribute, which is job type, the type attribute into job type. If the job attribute is 1, that would mean that it is an interactive job. Then submit the job as a batch job. That's what this program does. Converts the interactive job into a batch job. Next command on page number 239 is the change job. The change job is just allowing you to make changes to the job attributes. So change job command lets you change certain attributes of any job system. And then it lists the attributes that it can change. It needs a job number. It needs a job queue. It needs the priority. It can change the job priority. Why would you want to change a job priority? If you want certain job to run faster, you want to change its priority to a higher number. And that's exactly what this program does, what you are seeing on slide number 5. We retrieve the priority of the job. If the priority of the job is less than 50, we set the priority to 50. So that's where we are using the change job command. Change the priority to 50. Then once the job is done, then change it back to what it was before. Do you follow that, everybody?
Yeah, that way you speed it up a bit, right?
So yeah, it will speed it up. Exactly. It will just make the job at a higher priority run faster before other jobs. And then you can change it back to whatever priority was before so that you don't permanently boost it up.
Gotcha.
Okay. Similarly, you see another code snippet on page 241 at the top that if the priority is less than 90, whatever it is, just add 10 to its current value. So you're not fixing it at a certain number, you're just jumping it by a certain amount. So you can also do that. Just give it a little boost. Okay, so you change the variable priority to whatever it is plus 10, and then you assign that to be the new job priority. Okay, system values, you already know what are system values. Now let's come to the retrieve system value command. Retrieve system value command allows you to retrieve, for example, the time. So on page 241, you can get to see that we are retrieving the hour, the Q hour, which is the hour value of the time in the variable this hour. And now look at this example here on slide number 7. We declared a couple of variables, models and serial number. And this example is also from the book from page 242. After we retrieve the Q model, which is a system value, we give that to a return variable model. And we retrieve the system value Q serial number, and then we return that to a return variable serial number. Now, this is slightly different from the previous examples because this command has a return variable. If you go back to retrieve job attribute, that did not have a return variable. It did not have a return variable parameter. It directly copied a property into a variable. So that's anytime somebody asks you if this command has a retrieve, has a return variable, this is the parameter that you're looking for. If the command has a return variable, then the command has a return variable. Otherwise, it doesn't. So if it doesn't have a return variable, it can directly copy. That means that attributes keyword itself is a value. But in this case, the attribute is not a value. You need to pass a value to the attribute for it to return a value, which you can then catch in a variable. So then we are displaying the serial number and the model number of the system. Similarly, you can change system values. So for example, I retrieve the hour into a local variable hour, and then I check to see if the hour is equals to 2. Then I want to update it to 3. So I'm modifying the hour to go up by 1. So I can change the system values. Similarly, there are several date time system values. Just like Q hour, you have Q date, Q month, Q year, Q day, Q time, Q century. There are several of these values, okay? I want you to read this on pages 243 all the way through page 247, okay? 243, I'm going to write it in the chat, okay? Pages 243 through 247. Okay. Oh, hi, Aiden. Welcome. I just marked you present in the attendance. Thank you for joining. So we're currently in chapter 14. So I've given everybody pages 243 through 247 to read. I'll clear your feedback. You let me know when you're done reading then. So if I go to a work user profile, oh, okay, cool. So work user profile, and I put in a ITPA 401, randomly picked somebody. And let me go into behind the scene properties of this person. So all of this information is kept about a user profile behind the scene. And you can see there's a page after page, pages of information. So if you now look at page 247 and look at all these parameters, and you can see why there are so many parameters here, because they represent this information over here. So for example, right at the top, there is a property called status. And you could see that in the parameter list. Maybe if you start looking from the bottom, you will find status to be the third one from the bottom. So if I want to see the status of the user, to see if the user is enabled or disabled, it will be this one that I'll be looking at. Okay. So retrieve user profile. Now, looking at the example on page number 248, where we declare a variable called user, and we retrieve the user profile. So we are reading user profile of the current user, and we are returning that in a variable user, and then we are displaying that information that user so-and-so is logged in. So this is how, again, this is one of those commands that has a return variable. That's why we first list the value in the first keyword and the return variable in the second one. Similarly, we have change user profile exactly the same way that we have the change method, a change command for the job attribute and the system values. We have a change one for the user profile. So you, with the proper authority, you can make changes to a user profile, changing his or her ability to perform certain operations, or modifying the work environment, because this command deals primarily with system security. However, we don't discuss it in this text. Okay. And then there are other retrieve commands. For example, we have retrieve object description command, which is on page number 249, right at the top. There's one short paragraph. This command provides a way to retrieve descriptive information about a single object on the system into CL variables. For example, the name of the owner who owns the job or object, or date of the last save, date of the last use, which library this object resides under. And you can, again, read all these values into variables by simply, and notice here we are saying that I want the owner's value to be moved into owner, return library into library, and the use date into use date. So there is no return variable as a parameter. You can just simply pass an attribute directly into the variable. Similarly, on page 248 at the bottom, you will find retrieve member description. For example, writing a CL program, that's a member, not yet compiled, not yet converted into an object. So you can also retrieve information about a member as to the current number of active records, the number of deleted records, the number of save, last use, all of that information. And very similarly, on page number 248 at the bottom, you see retrieve network attributes can be used to retrieve the name of the system, can be used to retrieve the name of the network on which you are on, and so on and so forth. Okay. Last week, did we do an example of date conversion?
Check in here real quick.
Date conversion example.
31 was our last one. Was it?
Yes, yes.
Now we were doing errors.
Okay.
See.
Okay, so so this would be one of the examples that we're going to be looking at today. The date conversion example, which is page 249. So convert date is the function, is the command that we use for date conversion. The convert date command has the following parameters. The first one is the date, which is to be converted, that you are bringing in. To_var is the variable in which the value is going to. From format is the format that your value is in right now. To format is the format that your value will be going into. and to separator, are there any separator in the command? So this retrieve system value will return the date through QDate, which you can then convert it from the system, which is the ISO format, to a different format. Does that make sense? So why don't you guys go ahead and read pages 249 and 250? Okay. So chapter 14, question 1. Which command will be used for this question? Write a CL statement to retrieve the current user's output queue. Which command did you guys use to retrieve the output queue?
RTV Java. And then the handout queue.
Okay, okay. We can also use retrieve user profile.
Oh,
Okay, because it is not asking you for a job. It is asking you for current user. That's the difference. Okay, so that's why, according to the question's description, we would prefer to use the user profile command, not the job one. Question 2. Write the CL statement to retrieve the current system date. Which command did you use for this one?
Retrieve system value.
Yes.
RTV.
Retrieve system value. Okay, then what did you do after that?
After that, you put Q date and then parentheses the variable.
Okay. Okay. Question number 3. Write the CL statement to convert the date variable Q date to the variable convert date with the date format MDYY. So you will use the convert date command. The first thing is the current format, which is in QDate. Then the format that you want to go into, like the variable in which the final answer will go, which will be CVT date. Then you have your from format, which is MDY, and your to format, which will be MDYY. Oh, I made one mistake. It should be CVTDAT. So guys, what did you do for number 4?
Retrieve system value.
Okay. Retrieve system value. Okay, then
Q model and then parentheses the variable. And
Q
then
model
Q
and
serial
then
number. for variable.
return variable is Q model. And then you have something very similar, but in the next line, you will use QSRL NBR, and that'll be the Q serial. Okay. Okay, going to the Blackboard. Unit 11. Chapter 19, which is page 351. Chapter 19 is about using IBM supplied APIs. So what APIs are available to you, which are application programming interfaces, are available to you through the IBM in the control language. And there's a long list of them. On page number 351, it talks about that application programming interfaces or APIs to make it relatively easy to access low-level machine functions or secured system data from a high-level program. APIs are documented, supported alternatives for gaining access to certain parts of the IBM I. One API displays a command line, another API enables a high-level language program, such as RPG and so on and so forth. There are hundreds of APIs available to you, and here's a list of some of them on page 351. Go ahead and look at this list. The chapter talks about only some of them. For example, QCMD, check QCMD, QCMD exec. Okay, so on the command prompt in the green screen, I want you to issue a handful of commands. For example, let's type display library, DSP-LIB, and hit enter. It will gonna generate some output. Then maybe try display library list. Then try some more commands like opening utilities, like start PDM, SDR SQL. So I wrote that in the chat as well, just so that you have the list of the ones that I'm going through. Once you're done with that, in the command, on the command prompt, type call QCMD. All second. Okay. Call QCMD. Notice all the commands that you have typed have disappeared. But now let's redo the same thing that you did individually in this environment. DSP-LIB, enter, F3. It keeps track of the commands that you have used. F3, STR PDM, F3, STR SQL, F3. See, it keeps track of all the commands that you have typed so far in the session in one place. So that's what the QCMD command can be used for. So to initiate it, you call QCMD. And all the commands that you run, it keeps them, it maintains them. Okay. Next one is call Q user command line. It displays a little command line at the bottom with a little emphasis on the command line. Like that. It just displays a command line, even on the places where something else is going on, and then you have a little command line at the bottom. You can always press F12 to cancel it. Similarly, we have Q command check command on page 355 to check the syntax of the command. That's another one. Q command exec command, which is on page 356 to execute a single CL command. And all of these are utilities. You don't always have to use them, but they're there. They're there for you to use them. So I want you to read pages 355 through 358. Okay, the last API is the ILE bindable API, which is for the common execution environment. In this API, you can call to do some date conversions, and this is all part of the API. So since these are all built-in procedures, you cannot call them with a call command, rather than you have to call it with a call procedure command. So you call a procedure CEE days, and then you pass it parameters that this is my start date. This is the format. Okay, so get the Lillian date from the date parameter. So then this is the variable in which you would want your date to be converted into a Lillian format. And then you can take that date probably and add X number of days to it. And then you can send it back and say, okay, I want this Lillian date to be now converted to this format. So, and then you can display, okay, this is my new date. So little things like that, instead of you coding them, you can use those built-in APIs or built-in functionalities. And there are hundreds of them, just like that. Depending on the shop, you get introduced to more APIs and things like that, okay? Now, we will go to RDI. And we will be doing some coding examples. So this was the last example. No, sorry. What was the last example we did? Was here. Come on. That was the last example that we did, correct?
31, yeah.
Yeah, okay, cool. Okay. So now let's do an example where one program will call another program and we'll pass some parameters. And then the receiving program will do the date conversion. So that way we'll be able to do both things. One program calling another program. And I think we did those examples before. But again, we'll just try to do both things at once. So let's create our next one. Let's save this one as number 32. And please make sure once you save it as 32 to make sure that your list is getting updated, guys. Okay, that's important because even, like my day section, the guy forgot to check and he had to redo the whole thing. So please make sure that number 32 shows up in the list. When you save number 31 as 32, make sure that 32 shows in the list. Okay. After that, we're going to start making some changes here. So I have a date variable of size 6. And I'll have a message variable, let's say size 100, maybe. Okay. I don't need any of this mon message stuff. So I'll delete a couple of lines from here. And I'll replace that with a call instruction that I will call CLPG33 SP23. So this is the program that we will code after this one. And I'm going to pass to that guy my date parameter and also my message parameter. And also I don't need this library parameter. I can delete that. Okay. And then I can display, the message parameter right here. Don't call this program yet. You will call it eventually, but don't call it yet. I'll tell you how to call it. So for now, just do this much and compile it. And let me know through your feedbacks when you're done compiling it. Okay, so I think Desmond is the only one left. Okay, got it. Okay, guys, so now let's create our next one, which will be CLPG33. And please make sure that you have done it the way I did it. I removed some of the code. Okay, so let's save this one as CLPG 33 SP23. And I'm going to make sure that SP33 is added to my source physical file. Now this one, I will pass a couple of parameters because the other guy is passing parameters to it. which would be date and message. Then I will need another variable called convert date, and that's the variable that I will hold the converted date into of character size 10. And we'll declare another variable called local MSG. Character size 65 to hold a value is a valid date. So we need to call the convert date function that you guys did in your activity at the end of chapter 14, convert date. The first parameter is the date parameter, which holds the incoming date. Do variable is your converted date. Okay. Then we need from format, which is MDY, because that's the default format, month, date, year in which we will pass. Do format will be the USA format. And the separator is whatever is the system separator. Change variable message to the following value. Date, concatenate that with the converted date. Concatenate that with a space. Oops. And concatenate that with our local message. Let me clear your feedback till you give me your new feedback after you're done compiling this code. Okay. So now let's see how you can call this. So let's call CLPG 32 SP 23. Okay. Now CLPG SP 23, that program does not take any parameters. Okay. So I need to make one change here. In my number 32, I would have to recompile it. Let me add a parameter here. Parameter date. So make sure you make that one final change to number 32 and recompile it. This was only to show you that when 32 was compiled, 33 did not existed, even though 32 was calling 33. So the called do not have to exist when the caller is getting compiled. And even after the caller gets done, called can be modified and recompiled. You don't have to compile the caller again, because the link is established only during runtime. So now I will pass a parameter, let's say 04/12/23. That'll be April 12th, 2023. Let me hit enter. And I got date is, see, I got date converted into this format. So I leave my call on the screen as well as the output so that you will know this call was converted to that output. I'll clear your feedback again. So that you can give me a new feedback that you are able to see this, that you passed date in MDY format and you got the date in MM/DD/YYYY format. So Alvin, Desmond, Jacob, Nathan.
My bad, forgot to hit yes.
It's okay. I think Nathan is the only one left. Okay, got it. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Okay. Okay. Now let's save our number 33 as number 34. And in number 34, we will try to tap into those commands we learn in chapter number 14, like the retrieve job attributes and things like that. So for that purpose, I will declare some variables such as a user variable of character size 10, job variable, character size 10, and a system variable, character size 10. Then I'll retrieve the job attribute into the job variable and the user name into the user variable. Similarly, I will retrieve through the network attributes the system name in my system variable, and I can then have a long message saying, you know, you are so-and-so user concatenated with sign on at the following job that is on system, concatenate that with the name of the system. I'm purposely not hitting enter so that you can see that you can type it all in one line. And then I'll hit enter. It'll gonna then divide it up in 2 lines. But the whole line will display an output that you are so-and-so user. You sign in on sign in on at so-and-so job and on the so-and-so system. Okay, now let me hit enter here. And I'm gonna split on 2 lines. I'll save the changes. I'll compile it. Oops, I made a mistake.
I don't think there's a variable to be changed in the change variable command.
Oh, you're right. Absolutely. It is send program message. Send program message. Thank you. Okay, and then convert date. Oh, I have a variable convert date that I'm not using. Okay, cool. And when you call it, you will see an output that you are ITPA so-and-so, sign on at so-and-so job on system det star. That will be your output when you run this program. Give me a green check when you guys are done, and you can see the output. So my output looks something like this. You are Yusuf S, sign on at so-and-so job on system so-and-so.
Who's Yusuf again?
My output is like this.
I
Yours,
was being,
you
I was being
are,
funny.
say it again.
I was just being funny.
Oh. Now, if you look at this week is a little bit heavy for you in terms of deliverables because we're getting very close to the final. I want to minimize the amount of work I assign you next week, because next week I will also be assigning you your final exam. So I probably may have an assignment and a final exam. So I've pushed a lot of the quizzes under this unit. So in this unit, you have 3 quizzes and an assignment. So a little bit of a busy week for you. But again, they're going to take some load off your shoulder the week after, when you want to just concentrate on the final. So your final will be assigned to you on the 12th and will be due by the 19th. So we have 1 chapter left, which we'll be looking at next week. That is chapter number 15. Okay. Amruta, is your code not working?
Yes, actually, I got an error. That's why I'm checking my code.
Okay.
Give me some time. Okay.
Okay. Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah. Thank you.
Uh-huh.